Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Yahweh being the true name worldly calls God, Ba'ashem being in the name of, and Yahushai being the true name of our Lord and Savior, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, and the Rakakadash being the Holy Spirit. Much respect to Aki and God for me, brothers and sisters, pushing the work of the Lord in true faith and sincerity. Shalom. So today in this lesson, basically going over, how, we're out to, not be lazy in this truth, or, just for brothers out there, who are being sluggish in this truth, to basically be a message, on how, not to be sluggish, stop being lazy in this truth, because ultimately in the times that we're going into, prophecy is speeding up at a high rate, man. We don't have got time to fold, and to fold under pressure, I know, brothers, we all go through, tribulation, in this truth. We all have demons that try to come our way, but the thing is we have to persevere through that, and we have to keep pushing, man. We can't have the easy way out and be lazy, And it's like even being in the world, man, you can't expect to have all these goals and finish all your goals if you're being lazy, eating chips on the couch, not putting in any work, man. So that's the same concept in the truth, man. You got to make sure you put in work consistently, man. First, let's go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 3 and verse 13. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 3 and 13, and it reads, "But exhort one another daily, while it is called to the day, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." So ultimately, you're supposed to exhort, one another daily, So you should be doing, daily lessons, If you're not teaching in the highways and byways at the moment, you have to make sure you at least, edify the brothers every day, through the unicorn, which is the internet. Continue to post your lessons, post everything that you need, to basically edify, the brethren, So ultimately, you should be, teaching every day, no matter what. Even if it's not a full 30-minute, plus, lesson, at least put some clips up there, at least put some news out there so brothers can know the times that we're in, Or you can post, the Sabbath, when the next Sabbath is, or certain things like that, man. So we're out to, exhort each other daily. We're supposed to teach each other daily, And now let's go to the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 32 and verse 17. This is the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 32 and verse 17, and it reads, "A sinful man will not be reproved, but find him an excuse according to his will." Let's read that again. "A sinful man will not be reproved, but finding an excuse according to his will." So, and that's facts, bro. A sinful man, someone who's subjected to sin, he will never want to get reproved, man. He's always going to be ignorant, to righteous things. He's always going to think that he's right. In the scriptures, it says that every man, thinking that he's right in his own eye, but finding an excuse according to his will, because ultimately, a sinful man, he's always going to find excuses, man. A brother he might not be at camp, he might be doing lessons. He's going to be like, "Oh, I got things going on, man." So you're telling me out the whole day, you don't got 10 minutes to yourself, especially when you're a grown-ass man? I understand if you're a young brother, but you're telling me you're a grown-ass man and you don't have 10 minutes to yourself in a day, to do a quick lesson? Like, a lesson don't got to be an hour. You can just put out a few precepts, and post your video, or, do a light edification for brother, post some news. But no, even if it's the smallest thing ever, a sinful man is always going to find an excuse, man. And that's true in everyday life too. Someone who's wrong in their, in their ideas, they're always going to find an excuse. Someone smoking weed, They're gonna be like, oh damn, bro, I'm going through things, man. You know, weed is my only way out. You know, have bitch ass excuses like that. You know, or you know, some people might be going through things emotionally, and they let their anger out. You know, on the people. You know, let your anger out on something else, man. There's no excuse, man. I don't care what you're going through, because anything that you're going through, you can persevere through it, and just always know someone's going through worse, man. In verse 18, a man of counsel will be considerate, but a stranger and a proud man is not daunted with fear, even when himself he hath done without counsel. You know? So, a person, that's wise, he's gonna be, considering, he's gonna consider, the things, the righteous things, that are around him, But, someone like, that is strange, and proud, just a sinful man, if you tell him about prophecies, and he won't get ready, man. He's not going to tremble, when he hears that. He's going to be very un-Noah-like, man. Noah, when he heard, the message from Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, he moved in fear. But, a wicked nigga, he's not going to care. He's not going to be moved with fear at all, In verse 19, do nothing without advice, and when thou hast once done, repent not. So ultimately you can't do anything, without advice. You always have to do something, based off, the way it should be done, because it says lean not upon your own understanding. So you have to know the knowledge, to do something. And that's in everything, not only the scriptures, but in everyday life, that's common sense. In verse 20, go not in a way wherein thou mayest fall, stumble not among the stones. In verse 21, be not confident in a plain way. So ultimately you shouldn't be confident in a plain way, a vague way, And now let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 6 and verse 6. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 6 and verse 6, and it reads, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. So basically, Solomon, he's telling you, bro, go to the ant. He's telling you, look at the ant. Thou sluggard. Sluggard just means, another way, of basically calling someone lazy, So Solomon said, go to the ant, you lazy person, and consider her ways and be wise, And you might question, why is he telling me to go to the ant? Because, an ant, is a very, hardworking organism. It's a very hardworking animal. These ants, bro, they're working their ass off, to get their food, to provide, their mates, shelter, their offspring shelter. Ants is always working, man. Even if you try to kill it, man, it's still going to get back up. It's still going to try to get back up, try to get home. You see how much pits, if you go near sand, you see how much ant pits there are. Because, an ant is consistently working, It never stops, it never has an off season, He doesn't have time to chill because he's trying to feed his family, He's trying to do all these things. And that's the same mindset you got to have, You have to have the same mindset. You have to be in continuous work because ultimately, the ant, this earth is not his rest, He has to continue to eat, He has to continue to find a way. No one's just going to give him food like that. In verse 7, which having no God, overseer or ruler. Verse 8, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in harvest. Like an ant, he's the one, who provides, the meat in the summer for and gather for food in the harvest. So ultimately, they don't have a guide, man. They're not like certain animals. A dog, the owner can just feed it, but an ant don't got that, man. An ant has to provide itself, the food, the harvest, In verse 9, how long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? Wilt thou arise out that sleep? So he's basically saying, man, you lazy nigga. How long will you sleep, you lazy nigga? Because ultimately, when you're being a sluggard in this truth, you're just being a lazy nigga, man. And we're not in a stage, especially in prophecy, how fast prophecy is going right now, for you to be in a lazy state, man. Because ultimately, the stuff that's going on in the news, this is just the beginning. Wait till all hell breaks loose, man. And then if you continue to be lazy and you change when all hell breaks loose, it's going to be too late, man. Because the Lord is going to see what you did before, man. Before all the temptation hit, that's what the Lord's testing. He's testing you that you'll keep integrity, So ultimately, how long will lazy niggas wake up out of sleep, man? Verse 10, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. 11, so shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth in thy want as an armed man. So ultimately, if you're speaking in a world sense, if you're lazy, poverty is gonna come upon you, man. In the scripture it says, he that loveth pleasure, shall be poor. All those people you see, who are poor right now, those bums on the streets, whether it not be like off financially, because a lot of these homeless people, they were balling, back in the day. But you know what? They had the mentality of, oh, let me have this pleasure, let me just be lazy. And look at them now. They're out here, sleeping outside, under highways and shit, So ultimately, bro, don't be lazy. And now let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 13 and 4. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 13 and 4, and it reads, the soul of the sluggard desireth and have nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. So ultimately, the soul of a lazy person, it desires everything, but it doesn't get anything, because it doesn't work, because what you put out is what you're gonna get. So if you put in hard work, you're gonna reap, the rewards of hard work. But Slakia. But the soul of the diligent shall be made fat, and that's true, man. The soul of the diligent, the soul of the wise will be made fat, because ultimately, they were sowing the right things, They were sowing the right things, which is righteousness, and they will be, blessed with, the fat of wisdom, And now, let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 26 and verse 16. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 26, starting at the 15th verse, and it reads, the slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Verse 16, the sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than 7 men that can render a reason, So ultimately, someone who's lazy, he's wise in his own conceit, he's wise in his own bullshit, than 7 men that can render a reason, So he's out here, wise as AF, in his own BS, more than, some 7 men, who can actually, prove a claim, So that's how a sluggard is. That's how a lazy nigga is. That's the mindset of a lazy nigga, And now let's go to the book of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 3 and 10. This is the book of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 3 and 10, and it reads, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither shall he eat. Let's read that again. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any man would not work, neither shall he eat. So ultimately, if you don't work, you don't eat, That's the same thing, concept, in regular life, man. If you don't work, man, you're not busting your ass at work. How you gonna pay your bills, man? How you gonna feed your family, man? So that's the same thing too. If you don't work, you don't eat. You don't work in these times, you're not gonna eat later. When there's famines, when there's all these things, if you don't put in the work now, your belly's gonna be empty in the time, of Jacob's trouble, man. But if you continue to work, you know, you will eat, man. And that's in everyday life, in every craft that you do. That's the mentality that you should have. Because if you put in that work, man, you're going to consume, greatness. You're going to consume, the righteous reward. So if you don't work, you don't eat. Always have that in your head. If you don't work, you don't eat. If you don't work, you're not going to eat good, man. You're not going to eat good. You're not going to be at the table, the dinner table of Yahweh Shem Shai, man. And now let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 4. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 4, and it reads, "The sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg in the harvest and have nothing." So, a sluggard, he's not going to plow, he's not going to shovel, in cold weather, in the reason of cold, Therefore he shall beg in the harvest and have nothing. So ultimately, he's gonna beg people, "Oh, yo, let me get some," but he didn't work for anything. Just like those foolish virgins, who left their oil, they ended up not getting oil because they were stupid. They didn't bring that wisdom with them, and that's what lazy people do. They don't use the wisdom that were given to them, so they're gonna ask, but they're not gonna be, rewarded because ultimately they didn't put in the work, man. They didn't put in the work. And that's how it should be. If you don't put in the work, man, you don't deserve anything. It's not gonna be a cakewalk. Anything you do in life shouldn't be a cakewalk. You should be putting work in everything that you do. A lot of people, even though these entertainers are carnal as fuck, wicked niggas, but you still have to look at them. People hate on them, but they still have to work, for everything they had. For example, LeBron James, this man been in the gym. Obviously he's sold out. He's Esau's puppet. But ultimately, he worked hard on the court, man. LeBron works hard on the court, takes care of his body, does these things, man. And that's why he's being rewarded in the league, in the field of entertainment, But a nigga like, say for so, Delonte West, he hasn't done shit, he took the way out being lazy, took the way of drugs. And if he asks for something, man, he's not going to get anything because he ain't put in the work, man. And now, let's go to the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 22, and it reads, we're going to read Salakia. We're going to read the book of James, chapter 1, verse 22 to close it out. This is the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 22, and it reads, But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. Let's read that again. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. So ultimately, you should be, also being, a doer of the word. You can't just be listening, to the brothers all day, watching brothers, at camp, listening to brothers. But if you're not doing any work, you're basically useless, man. It's like, for example, watching basketball all day. And you haven't even shot a basketball and you expect you to go to the NBA when you haven't even worked on your game physically. Because ultimately you're just deceiving your own self, man. You're just living in a fantasy when you should be really out here putting in that work, And that's the same thing, concept in this truth, You gotta be, hearers of the word, man. And doers of the word at the same time, There should be an equal balance, Because ultimately, man, especially at these times, bro, it's very easy, to do edification for the Lord. It's very easy to do a lot of things. It's easy, to put a lesson up on YouTube. You can even teach on Facebook, man. Make certain posts. It don't even have to be a video. You just do, the work of the Lord to the best of your ability. I know we're in captivity. I know it's hard, but ultimately you have to do what you gotta do, man. Because if the Lord sees you're working, He's ultimately gonna bless you. There's some brothers, who can't make it out to the highways and byways, but they're still out here, posting, 2 lessons a day, a lesson a day, which is great. So ultimately, you gotta do everything that you gotta do. You can't make excuses. Oh, I don't have, connections, with brothers, to go on the highways and byways. Because ultimately, you can do it by yourself, man. The elders, they did all these things by themselves. There wasn't people there. There was prophets there, to help them. But ultimately, they didn't have, the access, all this help that we had, because ultimately, they got it from the mud. They was the one, who got it, who did all the studying, themselves. They went to libraries. They did all these things. If the elders, made excuses, we probably wouldn't have the truth right now. If Yahweh Shai made excuses, we wouldn't be here right now. If all the prophets made excuses, we wouldn't have, the knowledge that we have right now. So ultimately, you got to stay in the righteous state. You can't be, sluggish in this truth. You can't be lazy, because ultimately laziness leads to your downfall, man. So with that, Lord willing, you edified. I like to say, Barak Tehau, Barak Tehau Shai, Barak Tehau, Barak Tehau Shai, Ba'ashem Ruach HaKodesh, Shalom.